You are a 5th level fighter. With your adventuring party, you take point with your longsword in hand through the mysterious forest. Suddenly you find yourself toe to toe with a fierce blood boar. What do you do? Today on Glorian In Depth, we will be looking at the pros and the cons of striking 3 times on your turn. To best understand this, we must look at some basic core mechanics of the Pathfinder 2nd Edition system. First being the 3-action economy. Many things cost 1 action, including your strike. You could potentially strike 3 times in a round, but is that the best option? Another core mechanic is the multiple attack penalty, or MAP, which applies to every attack after the first attack. And we must also consider the 4 degrees of success: critical success, success, failure, and critical failure. Each of these are determined by 10 above or 10 below the DC. A natural 1 drops the degree of success by 1 step, and a natural 20 increases the degree of success by 1 step. These will become very important later on, as you will soon see. For this example, we'll be using a fighter class. Level 5, maxed out on strength with a +4. He is automatically a master in martial weapons, and he is equipped with a +1 striking longsword. This is pretty on par for a level 5 character. He will be fighting in melee with a blood boar, a level 6 creature with an AC of 23, a fortitude of +16, a reflex of +14, and a will of +10. Being this creature is 1 level above the fighter, this is not an unreasonable encounter. On the fighter's first strike, the fighter has a +16 to hit. This is from the +4 from strength, the +11 because he has master proficiency with his longsword, and a +1 proficiency from the rune that is attached to his weapon. He will need to roll a 7 or greater to hit. This is a 70% chance. If he rolls a 17 or higher, the result will be a critical hit. The fighter's second strike will be with a -5 penalty due to the multiple attack penalty. This will result in a +11 to hit. The fighter will need to roll a 12 or greater to hit the blood boar. This is a 45% chance, and only on a natural 20 will the result be a critical hit. This is a 5% chance. If the fighter strikes a 3rd time this round, it will be with a -10 penalty due to multiple attack penalty. This result is a +6 to hit. The fighter will need to roll a 17 or higher to even hit the blood boar. This is only a 20% chance. I purposely chose the fighter class because this is the only class at this time that has master proficiency at a weapon at level 5. So if they still have a 20% chance of hitting with their 3rd strike, what are some alternatives that might be better than striking 3 times on your round? You may wish to impose penalties on the blood boar. There are multiple ways you can do this. One being grapple. You make an athletics check against the blood boar's fortitude save. In this case is a DC 28. If you are successful, the blood boar becomes flat-footed and immobilized. You are probably good at this as you have boosted out your strength and are most likely an expert in athletics at this time. You may wish to instead strike fear into the heart of the blood boar. Using an intimidation check, you can demoralize your enemy. In this case, it will be against the will DC of the blood boar, which is the DC 20. On a success, the blood boar becomes frightened 1, and if it is a critical success, it becomes frightened 2. A third option, and my personal favorite in this situation, would be to trip the blood boar. You make an athletics check against the blood boar's reflex DC, DC 24. If you are successful, the blood boar is flat-footed and prone. Additionally, if you critically succeed, they also take some damage. It should be noted that the trip and the grapple check both have attack trait attached to it. This means that it both incurs and adds to the multiple attack penalty. So why do I like the trip in this situation? If the blood boar becomes prone, it will most likely use its next turn to get up, which will trigger the attack of opportunity that you as a fighter automatically have, allowing you to make another strike at it when it is not your turn as a reaction without the multiple attack penalty. Just a reminder that in order to trip, you must have a free hand or a weapon with the trip trait attached to it. The longsword does not have the trip trait. So this leads me to my second point, your loadout for your character as far as equipment. Your choice of equipment is important in developing different options for you to use in combat. Weapons with the agile trait reduce the multiple attack penalty for the second and third strike, but typically at a lower damage threshold. These increases the chance to hit with the second strike from 45% to 50% and the third strike from 20% to 30% in this example. Another option you may wish is to take a shield. Fighters begin with the shield block reaction at first level. This will let you minimize the amount of damage that you take yourself. A third option is to have a free hand. With a free hand, you can do options like the shove, trip, grapple, also interact with other items such as a healing potion, but you cannot hold a shield or perform feats that require you to hold two weapons. It is of note that gauntlets and spiked gauntlets do count as free hands and agile weapons. And speaking of feats, class feats are a great way to customize your character and add more options to your combat. Highlighting just a few options that you can take, at level 1 you can select the double slice feat. This grants you an activity that costs you 2 actions, and it requires that you are wielding 2 melee weapons, 1 in each hand. You lash out at your opponent with both weapons, making 2 strikes, 1 with each of your melee weapons, and each strike using your current multiple attack penalty. Both strikes must have the same target, and if the second strike is made with a weapon that does not have the agile trait, it takes a -2 penalty. If both of these attacks hit, combine their damage and then add any applicable effects with both weapons. You add any precision damage only once to the attack of your choice. Combine the damage from both of these strikes and apply resistances and weaknesses only once. Now this does count as 2 actions when calculating your multiple attack penalty for that third strike. However, your first 2 strikes are with that plus 16 from your longsword, which is fantastic. Alternatively, you may wish to use the power attack feat, which you can also get at level 1. This also is a 2 action ability. It will do extra damage with this strike. It's only 1 melee strike, but it does count as 2 attacks when calculating your multiple attack penalty. So once again, it does little to help with that third attack. However, this does allow you to use a free hand or to be carrying a shield. As a second level feat, you may decide to use Intimidating Strike. Now this is also a 2 action activity. You make a blow to you, not only wounds the creature, but it also shatters their confidence. You make a melee strike, and if you're hit and deal damage, the target is frightened 1 or frightened 2 on a critical hit. Now this is fantastic if you have a low charisma character, or in this case, when you don't share the language with your target. This will automatically make them frightened 1 or frightened 2 without you needing to do an intimidation check. Finally, I'd like to highlight the knockdown feat that you can take at level 4. You make an attack to knock a foe off balance, then immediately follow it with a sweep to topple them. You make a melee strike. If it hits and deals damage, you can attempt an athletics check to trip the creature you hit. If you are wielding a two-handed melee weapon, you can ignore the trips requirement that you have a free hand. Both attacks count towards your multiple attack penalty, but the penalty doesn't increase until after you've made both of them. So this allows you to make a strike with a plus 16 on your first strike. Then follow it up with an athletics check to trip your creature, which does not incur the multiple attack penalty even though trip is an attack. This fighter did not come alone. It is good to work well with your party, knowing their attributes and abilities. Sometimes it is a good idea to delay your action until after your teammates have gone. Some party members can provide you with buffs or add penalties to your enemy to increase your chances of dealing the maximum amount of damage. In this example, the party's rogue comes in behind the bloodboar to provide flanking. With sneak attack damage, she strikes at the opponent, and she also uses her third action for battle assessment, which she picked up at 4th level. She finds out that the bloodboar has an extremely low will save. The party bard is next to act. He uses Inspire Courage. He and his allies in the area gain a +1 status bonus to attack rolls, damage rolls, and saves against fear. With his knowledge that the bloodboar has a low will save, he will cast Fear on the bloodboar. The bloodboar fails its will save and becomes frightened 1. Because the bloodboar is flanked and thus flat-footed to the fighter and frightened 1, the bloodboar's AC now becomes 20. The fighter also has Inspire Courage, giving him a +1 to his attack, making his first attack with a +17. This is going to give him a 90% chance to hit the bloodboar on the first strike, and a 40% chance of that first strike becoming a critical hit. With such a great chance of hitting the bloodboar, the fighter may decide to use Double Slice or Power Attack, as discussed earlier. The fighter could opt to use Intimidating Strike, but he would need to critically hit the bloodboar in order to increase the frightened condition from 1 to 2. The fighter could also use Knockdown. The boar is already flat-footed, so making him prone would not give an additional benefit immediately. However, the bloodboar will most likely use its next action to attempt to stand up, offering the fighter a chance for attack of opportunity, which he can make with the +17 for another 90% chance to hit. If the fighter does decide to go for the third strike, he has a 40% chance of hitting the bloodboar, or a 50% chance if his third attack is with an agile weapon. In this video, we've covered some pros and cons for striking 3 times as a fighter in a melee combat. Of course, there are many other classes and feats and different combinations you can use. I would like to plug Crunch McDabble's video on top 10 things you can do besides make a third attack. I'll put the link to his video in the description below. I hope that you liked this video as we explore a little more of the mechanics of Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Did you like this video? Would you like more about the Galorian lore and characters in the Pathfinder universe? Please let me know in the comments. And remember to like and subscribe. Until next time, happy gaming.